being here. My name is Alicia Brenny, Chair for the FCRC. The Franchise and Concession Review Committee public hearing will now come to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor.
Here, Alicia Brenny.
Office of the Mayor.
Olivia Arno, President.
Controller.
Regina Costa for New York City Controller Brad Lander, present.
Corporation Counsel.
Matthew Bridge, present.
Office of Management and Budget.
Yvonne Kintian, President.
President, Borough of the Bronx.
Robert Brugman for Bronx Borough President, Vanessa L. Gibson.
President, Borough of Brooklyn.
Spencer Williams, President of the Borough of Brooklyn. President.
President, Borough of Manhattan.
Peter Torrey from Manhattan Borough President, Martha Lee.
President, Borough of Queens. Let the record reflect President, Borough of Queens is not present. President, Borough of Staten Island.
Yassine Jokbridge for Staten Island Borough President, Vito J. Patel, present.
Representative, Department of Parks and Recreation.
Phil Abramson, New York City Parks, present.
Representative, Department of Small Business Services.
Darrell Williams, ABCC Contracting Council, SBS, President.
Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome to this public hearing of the Franchise and Concession Review Committee. The hearing being conducted today has been publicly advertised in accordance with the New York City Charter and Concession Rules of the City of New York. We want to be sure that anyone desiring to be heard has an opportunity to do so. All persons wishing to speak must fill out a request slip, which may be obtained from the clerk. Those registered will be called upon to testify after their calendar item has been called. You may also submit written testimony to the clerk, which will be made part of the record. Any written submission can be given to the clerk at the close of the public hearing or can be emailed to fcrc@mox.nyc.gov before the end of today. All written testimony will be provided to the committee for their review and consideration. I understand that there are folks that want to testify, and each speaker will be allotted approximately 3 minutes. When you testify, please state your name and affiliation, if any. Will the clerk please call the first calendar item?
New York City Department of Parks and Recreation, calendar item number 1, in the matter of the intent to award as a concession a license agreement to City Pickle Brooklyn Bridge LLC for the development, operation, and maintenance of a temporary sports recreational concession at Anchorage Plaza, Brooklyn. The license will provide for 1 3-year initial term with 3 1-year optional renewal periods exercisable at the sole discretion of the Department of Parks and Recreation.
Thank you. We will take testimony from the public, but first I'd like to ask members of the committee if they have any statements. I recognize and apologize because this is my first meeting.
Peter Torrey.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of Manhattan Borough President Mark Levine, I would like to thank the stakeholders, members of the public, representatives from city agencies, and my fellow commission members for being here today. The Manhattan Borough President has long advocated for and supported legislation to eliminate tourist helicopters from our skies, to protect the quality of life for our communities and the quality of the air that we breathe. Helicopter flights impact New Yorkers' quality of life, particularly in Manhattan, Queens, and Brooklyn. Oh, so it's wrong.
Yeah.
So forgive me. I'm gonna say that for item 2. That's a little preview, everybody. Please strike that. I got excited.
Not a problem.
Yeah. I have no comment on the first item.
Thank you very much. Any other committee member wish to make a comment about the license agreement to City Pickle Brooklyn Bridge? All right, we will now begin hearing testimony from the public. As a reminder, everyone will have 3 minutes to testify. Please be respectful of other speakers' time and be courteous in providing testimony. Is there anyone here who wishes to testify regarding the award as a concession, a license agreement to City Pickle Brooklyn Bridge? All right, seeing that no one's here to testify on that item, will the clerk please call the second calendar item?
Yes. New York City Department of Small Business Services, calendar item number 2. In the matter of the intent to award a concession agreement to Downtown Skyport LLC for the operation of the Downtown Manhattan Heliport. The agreement shall be administered by the New York City Economic Development Corporation, who shall act as the city's administrator for all purposes with respect to the agreement. The agreement will provide for 1 5-year initial term with 3 5-year optional renewal periods exercisable at the sole discretion of EDC and SPS.
All right, we will take testimony from the public, but first I'd like to ask the members of the committee if they have any statements to make regarding this calendar item regarding Downtown Skyport LLC.
Thank you. I'll just pick up where I left off. I'd love to, actually. Thank you for prompting me. On behalf of Manhattan Borough President Mark O'Dane, I would like to thank the stakeholders, members of the public, representatives from city agencies, and my fellow commission members for being here today. The Manhattan Borough President has long advocated for and supported legislation to eliminate tourist helicopters from our skies, to protect the quality of life of our communities and the quality of the air that we breathe. Helicopter flights impact New Yorkers' quality of life, particularly in Manhattan, Queens, and Brooklyn. Our office receives nearly daily complaints from neighbors trying to put a baby to sleep, focus on their work, or merely breathe clean air in one of our public green spaces. We must find ways to reduce tourist helicopter flights. Until we are able to eliminate tourist flights legislatively, any steps EDC can take to incentivize a quieter, cleaner industry are steps in the right direction. The new vision presented by the city today for the downtown heliport adhere to these principles. The commitment to equip the heliport for the purposes of waterfront for the delivery of freight and other packages is also a positive step forward, as that can help alleviate the number of trucks on our streets, particularly if transferred to smaller vehicles and cargo bikes. The congestion caused by freight and e-commerce contributes to the less safe and less efficient streetscape, to the detriment of all. However, we do have questions regarding the future operation of the downtown Manhattan heliport. For instance, what are the guardrails in place to ensure that freight and cargo offloaded at the pier and transferred to bikes and trucks won't have a negative impact on the surrounding community in terms of congestion, safety, traffic, and other issues? How will the city transition from Saker to the new operator? How will the city transition, or rather, how much time will that take? What will happen to the over 60 people who work there? Will the cap limiting tourist helicopter flights might be lifted if eVTOL planes comprise 50% of the traffic? And if so, will that lift the tourism cap for all vehicles? This agreement should not allow for raising or altogether eliminating tourist flights, and we strongly encourage EDC to amend the agreement. Further, any language allowing the city the sole discretion to increase the hours of operation or the number of flights must be removed, and public input should be required. Concerns must be raised with the security of the site as well, have been raised, I should say, and clarity should be provided to the FCRC about those issues. Additionally, I am concerned about enforcement of this agreement. The city must have much stronger enforcement mechanisms in place to ensure that noise complaints come down and more environmentally friendly machines are used. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Any other committee member wish to make a statement?
Yeah, I would just like to say on behalf of Controller Brad Lander that we echo much of what was said by Manhattan Borough President Mark Levine. We have long been on record as supporting the reduction or elimination of tourist helicopter flights from the downtown Manhattan heliport on grounds of both quality of life and environment. And we would like to see things that continue to do that. And additionally, we support the policy goals that are outlined in this project of trying to find more uses for that space that contribute to for freight and blue highway and maritime infrastructure. So we'd just like to echo that.
Thank you.
And thank you all for being here today too. Tell us more.
Any other committee member wish to make a statement? All right. We will now begin hearing testimony from the public. As a reminder, everyone will have 3 minutes to testify, and please be respectful of other speakers' time and be courteous when providing testimony. Will the clerk please call the first person to testify?
Yes. Bill Thomas, please provide your full name and affiliation for the record.
Good afternoon. I'm Bill Thomas, and I'm a board member of Stop and Shop. I'm going to deliver some comments, but some of my colleagues will sort of amplify on some of the points that I raised. I'm going to try to keep this to 3 minutes because I know the ground rules. First, and we appreciate the comments that have already been made. I think it's helpful to think first about what this procurement was, what its goal was. Right? The goal of it, which was announced in the RFP that was issued about a year ago in November of 23, was to essentially create the infrastructure necessary to support electronic helicopters, which Stop and Shop supports, but which would deliver quality of life improvements to the people of the city. And in addition, it asked bidders to make proposals for further improvements in quality of life. And we acknowledge that there are some signs of progress in the agreement. The requirement to install the electronic infrastructure, and the effort at least to create some incentives towards moving towards electronic helicopters. But in our view, it's really, frankly, not enough. We think the agreement does fall significantly short in this regard. Think about it. This contract has initial and renewal terms totaling 20 years. So you're making a 20-year decision. But there's nothing that gives us confidence that during this period, this 20-year period, electronic helicopters will become the predominant, if not the exclusive users of this facility. There's no mandates, no timelines, no numerical goals to get us from where we are now to where we want to be. In addition, there's really very little in the agreement that specifically addresses other quality of life concerns. 1 minute, thank you. For example, the current cap is about 30,000 tourist flights per year, remains at 30,000. The flights, the allowable flights, are pretty much unchanged as well, which is frankly a disappointment because bidders were asked to make some improvements along those lines. So it is Stop the Chop's recommendation that you defer voting on this agreement, send the agreement back to EDC and small businesses to continue to work on it to address the issues that I've raised today. Stop the Chop is prepared to work with these agencies and any other members of this committee to provide more details in terms of what we think would be a good outcome for the people of this city. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Will the clerk please call the next person who wishes to testify?
Liz Chow, please provide your full name and affiliation for the record.
My name is Elizabeth Chow. I'm a resident of New York City, and I am a supporter of Stop the Chop. And I want to thank everyone here for giving us the opportunity to comment on this concession agreement. As you consider how to finalize it or how to amend it as it's being finalized, as everyone else here who has spoken so far has said, I really urge you to take into account the very negative quality of life impacts of helicopter noise on our community. For example, I live near Central Park, which is supposed to be an oasis of peace and quiet in the city. However, helicopters hover overhead for minutes on end, constantly giving tourists a good look at the reservoir or other famous sites, and they traverse the park as rich commuters use it as a pathway to airports or their mansions in Long Island. On a typical 1-hour walk in the park, I will really be assaulted, it feels like an assault, by the noise of at least 10 helicopters hovering overhead for long periods of time. In another example, when I recently spent a day at Governor's Island, which is also meant to be an oasis, there were at least 3 helicopters flying within my view and hearing at all times. It was like being in a war zone. So this concern about the quality of life of New Yorkers is very real and very present to me and to so many New Yorkers. There's no shortage of robust evidence of the harm of aviation noise. The negative health impacts are magnified when the noise comes from helicopters with their distressing blade slap and vibrations. And of course, there's the annoyance factor, which is huge where helicopters are concerned due to fear of crashes, fear of terrorism, the enormous air pollution they create, and the perception that they are fundamentally rich people's toys. So I was glad to read in the draft agreement that electric charging infrastructure will be required and that there will be movement toward e-vehicles, that the number of hours during which tourist flights can operate will be reduced, and that the agreement does acknowledge the detrimental effects of helicopter noise on the lives of New Yorkers. But as you revise and finalize the agreement, I urge you to mandate
1 minute remaining.
that the concessionaire transition all traffic to e-vehicles as soon as possible, eliminate or substantially reduce the number of tourist flights from the current 30,000 per year, introduce a hard cap on commuter flights to and from the heliport, and mandate that pilots fly at maximum altitude and use water routes. It should be an easy decision for the city to implement these mandates, given that non-essential helicopter traffic is an air and noise pollution and safety disaster created by the wealthiest 1% to the detriment of all New Yorkers. If the city cares about its residents, it must tighten up this agreement. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Will the clerk please call the next person who wishes to testify?
Yes. Melissa Elstein, please provide your full name and affiliation for the record.
Thank you. My name is Melissa Elstein. I'm the board chair of Stop the Chop NYNJ and the board president of Stop the Chop NYNJ Advocacy Fund. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. I'm actually, we're all volunteer members on Stop the Chop NYNJ, but we work around the clock on this issue because we're so passionate about it, and we represent tens of thousands of people throughout New York City. One of our petitions has over close to 18,000 signatures. I don't want to reiterate what's already been said, so because we only have 3 minutes. We do support the shift away from the gas-guzzling traditional helicopters to eVTOLs, but we don't support the unfettered use of electric aircraft once they are certified. And in this agreement, there are no caps on them. We believe as well that commuter traffic, if it's to be expanded at DMH, there should also be caps on those flights. Specifically, with regard to section 2.03 e, there's some flaws in this section. This is one of the most important parts of the draft agreement. First, the wording is confusing and could be read that once there's a 50% replacement of eVTOLs of the fossil fuel ones, that all could be increased. So that would definitely need to be explicitly changed in the wording. Like I said, we don't support unlimited eVTOL tours. And this actually, we call it a loophole in this section, would allow the expansion of the tours. It seems like it would allow the expansion of the eVTOLs, but again, we are not saying we want unlimited electric air traffic like the Jetsons in New York City. Additionally, there are some vague terms in that section, such as like reasonable discretion, reasonable amount, and the operator and the EDC alone have the discretion if they are going to increase those amounts. So we think that that's an inherent bias, and there should be community input as well as with the borough presidents and elected officials, because right now there's none of that from elected officials. Similarly, again, there's sole discretion to these somewhat biased participants or parties, in that increasing the hours, as was mentioned, is at the sole discretion as well. So again, we want public input on that, as well as from the elected officials. Similarly, to be made publicly, we do support all the required reports that were mentioned throughout the document, but right now, they're not going to be, the reports are not going to be made public on the website of EDC or anywhere else, so we request that, as well as that the borough presidents all receive these reports, as well as the city council members. And with regard to the tours, we were disappointed that whether it's fossil fuel or eVTOL, that the routes, that the routes were not decreased and will continue to make the Hudson River a helicopter highway. Thank you.
Thank you. Will the clerk please call the next person who wishes to testify?
Yes. Andy Rosenthal, please provide your full name and affiliation for the record.
My name is Andrew Rosenthal. I'm the president of Stop the Chop, NYNJ, and a nearly lifelong resident and taxpayer in New York City. Thank you for this opportunity to share with you some thoughts about helicopters from someone who thinks about helicopters every day, all day. At Stop the Chop, we not only think about helicopters every day, but we talk to far too many other suffering citizens and gather their ideas as well as complaints. Since I only have 3 minutes, I thought it was 2, so we should be good, to share with you the thoughts of hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers, let me get right to the point. The proposed concession agreement must not be finalized. It is a disaster for the citizens of New York. For at least 3 decades, New Yorkers on both sides of the aisle have made their desire to curtail this nuisance clear. Mayor Giuliani closed the East 60th Street heliport and publicly stated his goal was to eventually close all the other heliports in New York City. Mayor de Blasio cut the flights at DMH in half, roughly, in response to overwhelming city council support for a bill that would have virtually halted all flights at DMH. These are our elected representatives in a democracy. Last year, in 551, a bill that would have closed both New York City-owned heliports to all non-essential traffic garnered the public support, co-sponsorship of a majority of the city council, but never received a floor vote. The message sent should have been clear. Unfortunately, EDC, SPS, and the mayor's office appear to be deaf to these messages. If non-essential helicopter operations are to continue at DMH, several steps need to be implemented at a minimum. The volume of flights must be materially reduced. A 50% cut like Mayor de Blasio put in would be a good start. There must be a cap on the number of non-tourist flights at or below current volumes. This agreement has no cap on non-tourist flights. We could have 1 million flights a year there under this agreement. The air pollution monitoring mandated under the 2016 de Blasio agreement must include the six basic types of air pollution that the EPA monitors under the Clean Air Act. The current reports have none of those. We do not monitor particles, CO2, carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, or sulfur dioxide. The EDC must stop dismissing legitimate 311 complaints. I know this to be a common practice as I have firsthand experience. I'm a pro-business capitalist. In real capitalism, businesses pay for their externalities. These operators do not pay any of their externalities. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you. Will the clerk please call the next person who wishes to testify?
Yes. William Wachtel, please provide your full name and affiliation for the record.
Yeah. 3 minutes, I'm sorry. Right? Okay, good. My name is William Wachtel. And I'm here today on my affiliation. My affiliation is twofold. One, I'm the chairman of Safety Air Aviation. I'm also the father of a daughter who's worked on Governor's Island for 5 years and doesn't want to talk to me. So, I'm here on behalf of, but I'm not here. Why am I here? I'm here to make sure that the city makes the most informed decision possible in respect of putting somebody in charge of the busiest heliport in the world. 36,000 landings, biggest in the world, and a very challenged space, because understand that unlike airports, this heliport has its own tower. It controls the movements of the planes coming in and out. So, there we go, yeah. As part of a highly informed decision on the busiest heliport in the world, questions come up. One, safety, security, national security, for reasons being including that the president lands there, integrity, in general in its bid, because what you have to decide on is whether or not you want a foreign-owned company with virtually no experience to be charged with the task of running this heliport, given its incredible importance and its potential for national security issues, and I hate to use the word terrorism, but that's always been part of our training there because it is a susceptible place. Okay. We urged the EDC to meet with us, they declined. We filed a protest last week, Wednesday, you'll see it, they have not yet responded. We filed a supplemental protest yesterday, and of course they haven't responded. So we posed it over a dozen questions and concerns as to process, but most importantly, what's in the city's best interest. So let's turn to the most important issue, experience. You should know that EDC made a presentation to the community board recently and stated very clearly in that presentation that ATP, somehow an affiliate of the awardee,
1 minute remaining.
okay, operates Stewart Airport. It's a lie. And you'll see a tape
in the record that we'll put in that I just made today when I called the airport and I asked for the operator. They gave me the operator. They told me it was a company called Avports and that ADP isn't around here. I even drove up there on Saturday. EDC surely could have done that. There are a number of government agencies that are relevant. Fire Department, FAA, and something called CFIUS. CFIUS is made up of the Department of Defense, the Treasury, Homeland Security, and it's specifically charged to look at acquisitions of foreign business entities and real estate by a foreign entity. We've called out to EDC whether they've looked at that. I doubt they have. And understand that to lie affirmatively about your experience under these concession rules is a ground for debarment. And they've lied, and you'll see in our written testimony how we can prove it unabashedly.
That's time.
Any more, or am I done?
3 minutes, sir, sorry.
No discretion?
Next person, please.
Okay, thank you very much, and you'll see our written testimony.
Will the clerk please call the next person who wishes to testify?
Yes, David Forbes, please provide your full name and affiliation for the record.
Thank you for holding this hearing. My name is David Forbes. I'm a retired emeritus professor with CUNY, the Graduate Center, with program Urban Education. I learned from the advocacy group, which I endorsed Stop the Chop, that the agreement you are considering allows for an unlimited number of commuter flights to and from the heliport. I'm focusing on commuter flights. I agree with Stop the Chop to call for a hard cap on such flights, as is already the case with Manhattan and other heliports, and that it merely encourages commuter pilots to fly at the maximum altitude and to use water routes rather than traverse, for example, Brooklyn and Queens neighborhoods. I'm agreeing with Stop the Chop that these common sense changes be mandatory requirements. I have a 75-year-old CUNY professor who continues to do research and write from our 9th floor apartment at 135 Eastern Parkway in Brooklyn. My wife, Iris Lopez, 72, is a full professor at City College CUNY, and due to her recovery from cancer, works full-time, also from home, by teaching her courses on Zoom. Every day, including Saturdays and Sundays, beginning just after 7 a.m., often through evening until 8 p.m., with the exception of a bad weather day that prevents them from flying, we are disturbed, disrupted, become anxious, stressed, aggravated, and angered by the loud, growling, war zone and dive bombing-like horrific noise from the what I would call selfish, greedy Blade commuter helicopters that fly very close to our building. Blade takes wealthy commuters who can't be bothered with cabs or public transportation and would care less about the emotional impact on those below them. Their flight path runs a few hundred feet northeast of our building along Atlantic Avenue between Wall Street and Heliport and JFK, back and forth all day. We feel assaulted, under siege, powerless, and helpless. I have contacted 311 countless times, and the FAA, who apparently can do nothing and have no interest in this issue. I have contacted the office of my congressperson, Daniel Goldman, who is sympathetic to this issue, and spoke directly with my assembly member, Robert Carroll of District 44, who is also concerned and supportive. We keep our windows closed, but when the weather is nice, we open them. Okay, and we open them and know the noise will be worse, which it is. This is a physical health issue, as it raises blood pressure and cortisol levels. This is a mental health issue, as it causes considerable stress, anxiety, and constant interruption from our everyday interactions and activities, as well as from our work. It's a quality of life issue that makes us question whether we want to stay in our own home and even our own city and move. It's a bottom line fiscal issue. Does this depreciate the value of our apartment if we were to sell? Would I personally want to move into this or any apartment if I knew in advance that we would be constantly disturbed by this noise due to the proximity flight path? Would you? When I was able to report the helicopters on the Wright Avenues app, I saw and communicated with several people from Brooklyn and Queens who feel similar despair and helplessness and are also entertaining the thought of moving out of their neighborhood. I'm respectfully asking you to restrict the number of commuter flights that fly from Wall Street to JFK over Brooklyn at low altitudes, and even better, enforce commuter pilots to fly at the maximum altitude and use water routes rather than traverse Brooklyn and Queens. And Blade ignored what I said. Thank you.
Thank you. Will the clerk please call the next person who wishes to testify?
Yes, I believe we've heard all testimony on this calendar item. Did anyone get skipped? Okay. For those who are not able to complete their testimony in the time allotted, you have until the end of today to submit written testimony to fcrc@mox.nyc.gov. And the committee will be provided all written testimony received today.
Thank you. Before we conclude, I want to ask if any of the agencies presenting calendar items today have any statements for the record prior to the closing of the hearing. Recommended Parks.
Thank you very much. In reference to calendar item number 1, New York City Parks is very excited to soon partner with City Pickle to help activate Anchorage Plaza in downtown Brooklyn. Anchorage Plaza has been dormant and closed for public access for more than a decade. We look forward to bringing in a new concession to help transform and activate this space. The license agreement is the result of a vibrant public engagement process, including many discussions with Brooklyn's Community Board 2, local elected officials and stakeholders, and the issuance of first a request for expressions of interest and then a request for proposals. Parks and City Pickle are excited to offer to the public free amenities at Anchorage Plaza, such as public seating, a children's playscape, public art installations, and a tree nursery, in addition to the food trucks and pickleball courts. And to encourage pedestrian flow, we will work to ensure there is direct pedestrian access from Washington Street on one side of the Brooklyn Bridge to Old Fulton Street on the other. This is a matter we have discussed with and received positive feedback from Community Board 2. So in summary, we look forward to returning Anchorage Plaza for public use by the community and believe this agreement with City Pickle will best achieve that goal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other agencies wish to speak? All right, last call, no one else wishes to speak. All right, that concludes today's hearing. We ask that the reporter make the entire public hearing agenda, which is made publicly available and distributed this hearing, part of the final record of the proceeding. This hearing is now closed.